Hi, I'm Liv and welcome to the Book Nook. Hey guys, so today is the first part of my June haul, so I've gathered a lot of books even within like the first week of June. But I'm off work for like 5 days now and I'm going to try my hardest not to really go into work in the next sort of 5 days all that much, so I probably won't come away with too many more, so I'm hoping this will sort of see me through for a little while. So the first ones that I'm going to start with are a couple of books and something else that I acquired when I was working an event last week. So you may remember in the last one I think I mentioned I was working the Alan Lee event. Was it the last one or is it the one that I haven't yet uploaded? No, it will be the last one by the time this goes up. There you go. So I worked an event at work where we had Alan Lee come in and give us a little talk. Now Alan Lee, for those who don't know, is an illustrator of J.R.R. Tolkien's works, and he was also one of the conceptual artists in the crew of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So he, was in New Zealand for like the 12 years that it took doing those two films, and he was one of the sort of key conceptual artists. And he is an absolutely fascinating man and one of the loveliest human beings that I have ever met, I think. He was so nice. He had time for everybody. Everybody who came and got their book signed afterwards. He was signing for like an hour and a half, and he just did not faze him how many people there were. And he stood up. Every person who came to get a book signed, he stood up, he shook their hand, he gave them a hug, he had a little chat with them. He had time for everyone, and he was so, so lovely. Should have said that the reason was in honour of the release of Beren and Luthien, which is a new posthumous, obviously, book by J.R.R. Tolkien, illustrated by Alan Lee. And of course, I had to get my copy signed by Alan, because he's lovely. As well as a copy of Beren and Luthien, I also picked up a copy of Tolkien's Tales from the Perilous Realm, which includes Roverandom, Farmer Giles of Ham, The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, Smith of Wootton Major, and Leaf by Niggle. Now, I've already read sort of like a few of these over the years. I mean, my dad is a huge Lord of the Rings fan and The Hobbit, and I borrowed his copy of The Hobbit, years and years ago. So I've read some of these short stories, but this edition is, unsurprisingly, illustrated by Alan Lee. So I'll try and find... So you've got sort of full page sketch illustrations, and you've also got little ones dotted throughout as well, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. So of course I got this one signed as well. And the other thing that Alan did, which was so lovely, we were talking afterwards, and Lucy Hounsome, who was the sort of Q&A master for the evening, who's also a published writer herself, and she works with me, and she's absolutely wonderful, so I'll tag her down below. She was talking to me about a print that she has on her wall of one of Alan Lee's illustrations, and I just sort of said something like, oh, I'm so jealous. And I thought I saw Alan out the corner of my eye sort of going, oh, you jealous? And then he was doing something, and he'd brought his portfolio with him, and then he pulled out this and signed it to me, and I nearly did a little weep. Isn't it so pretty? Isn't it so pretty? It's a print of Olwen, and it's so pretty. So he was so lovely. He got our prints and signed it for all of us that worked as a sort of thank you for, sort of looking after him that evening. But it was an absolutely wonderful evening. There's going to be an episode of Wexcast, the podcast that I do for Waterstones Exeter, coming up in the next few days, or by the time this video goes out, it probably will have already come out. I'm trying to get ahead of myself and it's confusing. There'll be a podcast up episode of the talk that he gave, so if you fancy having a little listen to that, I will post the links down below. So it was a wonderful evening, got some goodies from that, and Alan Lee is an absolutely lovely human being. Now quickly on to the 3 books that I didn't buy this week, this period, this spell, I don't know, but 3 that I acquired. First one is The Butcher's Hook by Janet Ellis, this lovely edition here. So I'd heard about this one when it was coming out, and Janet Ellis, of course, is former Blue Peter presenter, mother of the Queen, Sophie Ellis-Bextor. And I was really intrigued, and I sort of heard mixed things about it, but by and large I've heard quite good things about it. And it's one that I think, it sounds like a bit of a sort of dark yet cosy read, so I'm probably going to give it a go. So let's have a quick read of the blurb. George in London in the summer of 1763. At 19, Anne Jacob is awakened to the possibility of joy when she meets Fub, the butcher's apprentice, and begins to imagine a life of passion with him. The only daughter, Anne, since her beloved baby brother's death, the only child of well-to-do parents, Anne lives a sheltered life. Her home is a miserable place, though her family want for nothing, her father is uncaring, her mother is ailing, and the baby brother who taught her to love is dead. Unfortunately, her parents have already chosen a more suitable husband for her than Fub. But Anne is a determined young woman with an idiosyncratic moral compass. In the matter of pursuing her own happiness, she shows no fear or hesitation, even if it means getting a little blood on her hands. A vivid and surprising tale, The Butcher's Hook brims with the colour and atmosphere of Georgian London as seen through the eyes of a strange and memorable young woman. This one sounds quite interesting because there are so many sort of novels written set in Victorian London that I think Georgian London, I mean, I don't know how different it's going to be. I'm really bad at history, so, but it sounds like it'll be really interesting, and it's meant to be quite dark, so yeah, I'm going to give this one a go, I think. Next up, I was kindly sent a copy of A State of Freedom, the new book by Neel Mukherjee, so let's have a little read of this one. What happens when one attempts to exchange the life one is given for something better? Can we transform the possibilities we are born into? A State of Freedom prizes open the central defining events of our century, displacement and migration, but not as you imagine them. 5 characters in very different circumstances, from a domestic cook in Mumbai to a vagrant and his dancing bear, and a girl who escapes terror in her home village for a new life in the city, find out the meanings of dislocation, intended or enforced, and the desire for more. It is a novel of multiple narratives set in contemporary India and moving between the reality of this world and the shadow of another. Neel Mukherjee delivers a devastating and haunting vision of a people defined by that most unquenchable of human urges, the striving for a different life. Formally daring, fierce but full of pity, A State of Freedom asks the fundamental question: how does one imagine the ways one can live in the world? So I've never actually read any Neel Mukherjee before. I've only ever heard good things about his writing though, so I'm going to give this one a go, I think, and then probably lend it to a few people. And the third one that I was kindly sent a copy of is Spoils by Brian Van Reet, and I really like this cover. I've seen it in the bookshop and been really intrigued by it. Now, it doesn't actually say anything about the book on the book, so I'm going to have to have a little read of something on my phone here. It is April 2003. American forces have taken Baghdad and are now charged with winning hearts and minds. But this vital tipping point is barely recognised for what it is, as a series of miscalculations and blunders fuels an already smouldering insurgency intent on making Iraq the next graveyard of empires. In dazzling and propulsive prose, Brian Van Reet explores the lives on both sides of the battle lines. Cassandra, a 19-year-old gunner on an American Humvee who is captured during a deadly firefight and awakens in a prison cell. Abu al-Hul, a lifelong mujahideen beset by a simmering crisis of conscience as he struggles against enemies from without and within, including the next wave of far more radicalised jihadists. And Specialist Sleed, a tank crewman who goes along with a victimless crime, the consequences of which are more awful than any he could have imagined. Depicting a war spinning rapidly out of control, destined to become a modern classic, Spoils is an unsparing and morally complex novel that chronicles the achingly human cost of combat. So, a book that's exploring sort of the Iraq war as it was happening and the sort of handover of power. It looks really, really interesting. I've heard quite good things about this one, so I don't know how soon I'll get around to this one, but it's definitely going to be one that I'm checking out. So that's Spoiled by Brian Van Reet. Reet. Next up, for a whole host of books that I bought. The first 2 I'm going to do are ones that I bought second-hand or new, but, you know, remainder sales kind of thing. And the first one is Big Brother by Lionel Shriver. Now, I cannot for the life of me remember whose booktube channel it was that I saw this on recently, and it wasn't that long ago, or maybe I was watching an old video of somebody's. I'm not quite sure, but I've seen it on booktube, and I thought this one sounded really good. And I've never read We Need to Talk About Kevin, which I don't know if I'll ever get around to it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But Big Brother sounds really, really interesting. Pandora has looked up to her older brother Edison since they were children. Now she revels in the anonymity of her suburban Iowa life, while her brother basks in the limelight as a New York jazz musician. But when Edison arrives in Iowa, suddenly in need of a place to stay, Pandora literally doesn't recognise him. The once slim, hip pianist has gained hundreds of pounds. What happened? Soon Edison's appalling diet and know-it-all monologues are driving Pandora and her husband Fletcher insane, and it's only a matter of time before Fletcher delivers his wife an ultimatum. It's him or me. With Shriver's distinctive wit and ferocious energy, Big Brother not only examines why we overeat, but asks more pressingly still, just how much should you sacrifice for someone who refuses to be saved? So yeah, I'd heard really good things about this. Was it Lauren in the books, I think, possibly? Possibly, I think so. I might have to try and check that out. But yeah, Big Brother by Lionel Shriver, I'm going to give that one a go. Then I picked up a copy of The Rachel Papers by Martin Amis. Now, I've never actually read Martin Amis before, so I'm quite intrigued by this one. Charles Highway, a precociously intelligent and highly sexed teenager, is determined to sleep with an older woman before he turns 20. Rachel fits the bill perfectly. Charles plans his seduction meticulously and sets the scene with infinite care, but it doesn't come off quite as he expects. So yeah, I just thought I'd not read any Martin Amis before, and I thought I'd give it a go. And yeah, why not? So typically me, I'm not doing actually things in order. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do. I don't know. But the first book that I actually bought this month was one that I mentioned in one of my previous videos. And that is 70% Acrylic, 30% Wool by Viola de Grado. So I read Viola de Grado's Hollow Heart and loved it. So I really wanted to get my hands on her first novel, 70% Acrylic, 30% Wool. In Leeds, England, it has been winter for so long that nobody's old enough to remember what came before. At least it seems that way to Camelia, a young Italian woman who inhabits that wintry wasteland with her mother, once a renowned flautist, now a mute depressive. For some years now, since the death of her husband in a freak accident, Camelia's mother no longer speaks and the two women communicate in a wordless language of their own invention. The odds are stacked against either woman ever finding her way back to a normal life. Until, that is, Camelia meets Wen. Wen is a local shop owner who has fallen for Camelia. In an effort to woo her, he begins to teach her Chinese. Through this new language of signs and subtle variations, Camelia will learn to see the world anew and, in it, a chance for renewal. In a breathtaking literary style inspired by the syncopated rhythms of modern music, Viola de Grado has given her readers an unusual love story, one as unpredictable as the human heart itself. Side-splittingly funny at times, heart-breaking at others. So I really, as I say, I really enjoyed Hollow Heart, and I did find that it was funny and it was moving, so I'm really excited to see how, I was going to say how it's evolved, but as this one's her first novel, how it's not devolved. To see the evolution of her writing reading it backwards. I don't know, not reading it backwards. I'm not that good. I don't know. So yeah, really excited to read this one and to add it to my little Europa Editions collection. Then I bought a book that I've been meaning to get for a little while because everyone has been telling me how great this author is, and that is Liani Taylor's Daughter of Smoke and Bone. Strange the Dreamer has been everywhere, and oh, actually, I forgot. One of my colleagues actually lent me her proof copy of Strange the Dreamer as well, so I've got 2 Liani Taylors this month. So, first one that I've got, Daughter of Smoke and Bone. If you read fantasy, you probably already know this one. It's meant to be really, really good. In general, Carew has managed to keep her 2 lives in balance. On the one hand, she's a 17-year-old art student in Prague. On the other, Erin girl to a monstrous creature who is the closest thing she has to family. Raised half in our world, half in elsewhere, she has never understood Brimstone's dark work, buying teeth from hunters and murderers, nor how she came into his keeping. She is a secret even to herself, plagued by the sensation that she isn't whole. Now the doors to elsewhere are closing, and Carew must choose between the safety of her human life and the dangers of a war-ravaged world that may hold the answers she has always sought. So as I say, I've heard so many people raving about this one as a sort of fantasy series. This one is the first in a trilogy, maybe more, but I think it's a trilogy. So yeah, I'm excited to give this one a go. I don't read as much fantasy as I used to. I used to read a fair bit of it when I was younger, so yeah, I'm going to pick this one up soon. As I say, my colleague lent me a copy of Strange the Dreamer, which has been everywhere since it's come out, and it's not the same sort of series as Daughter of Smoke and Bone, so I don't have to sort of worry about not knowing where I'm at in that world. The dream chooses the dreamer, not the other way around, and Laszlo Strange, war orphan and junior librarian, has always feared that his dream chose poorly in choosing him. Since he was 5 years old, he's been obsessed with the mythic lost city of Weep, but it would take someone bolder than he to cross half the world in search of it. Then a stunning opportunity presents itself, and he has to seize his chance or lose his dream forever. So this one does sound really good. I have been so intrigued by this one when we've had it in store, and I mentioned to one of my colleagues that I'd never read any Liani Taylor, and I had been quite intrigued, and I thought I probably would pick up a copy eventually, and she said, oh, well, I've got the proof. You can borrow it. So yeah, I'm going to read that one soon, I think. Now I've got a few little ditty books here that I picked up recently, and the first one I picked up was the concise and abridged edition of Trigger Warning by Mick Hume. Is the fear of being offensive killing free speech? So this one looks very interesting at the moment. In a fierce defence of free speech in all its forms, Mick Hume's blistering polemic exposes the new threats facing us today in the historic fight for freedom of expression. Ours is an age when sensitive students must be sheltered from potentially offensive material in safe spaces, Twitter vigilantes police those expressing the wrong opinion online, and many even insist that the massacre of the Charlie Hebdo cartoonists showed the need to restrict offensive ideas and opinions. But the fundamental freedom being attacked, the right to be offensive despite the problems it might create, is vital to a free and civilised society. Without unfettered freedom of expression, other liberties will not be possible. So I actually started reading this one. I picked this one up when I was working in Newton Abbot the other weekend, and picked it up and was reading it while I was waiting for my mum to finish her book, because she only had a few pages left. And it's really, so far, only a few pages in, really, really interesting, very, very thinky. I'm not entirely sure. Well, it's weird. It's one of those things, it's so far like it's already making me examine, you know, I believe in free speech and free expression. So a lot of these, I don't know, I'll talk about that one in my wrap-up. But yeah, free speech, trigger warning even. Trigger warning, yeah. By the same guy who did Revolting, which I hauled a little while ago. So yeah. Then I picked up a couple of the vintage mini-series, Psychedelics by Aldous Huxley and Race by Toni Morrison. There are a few more that I'm really intrigued by that we've got in, and there are a few that we haven't got in yet that I really, really want to read, but these are the first 2 that I picked up. So Psychedelics by Aldous Huxley Could drugs offer a new way of seeing the world? In 1953, in the presence of an investigator, Aldous Huxley took 0.4 of a gram of mescaline, sat down and waited to see what would happen. When he opened his eyes, everything, from the flowers in a vase to the creases in his trousers, were transformed. His account of his experience and his vision for all that psychedelics could offer to mankind has influenced writers, artists and thinkers around the world. So this is an extract from The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. So all of these, the vintage minis, they're only like £3.50. They are all sort of excerpts from authors' larger works that give you a sort of taste of their writing and their thinking. So Psychedelics by Aldous Huxley looks really good. And then Erase by Toni Morrison, which actually includes selections from Song of Solomon, The Bluest Eye and Beloved, so it's a bit of each. Is Who We Are really only skin deep? In this searing, remonstrative book, Toni Morrison unravels race through the stories of those debased and dehumanised because of it. A young black girl longing for the blue eyes of a white baby doll spirals into inferiority and confusion. A friendship falls apart over a disputed memory. An ex-slave is haunted by a lonely, rebukeful ghost, bent on bringing the past home. Strange and unexpected, yet always stirring, Morrison's writing on race sinks us deep into the heart and mind of our troubled humanity. So yeah, this is another one that looks really good. I love, again, I mean, the covers that they've done with these vintage minis and the way they're doing them is really, really gorgeous, so definitely excited to read those. And the fourth little diddy book I picked up, I didn't actually realise it was quite so diddy. It's so diddy, look, this is it compared to Diddy. Was one I'd seen on Instagram from an old friend of mine, Sunny, who had tweeted about this one, that she'd read this, and I was like, ooh, cover, intriguing. So I ordered myself in a copy, and it's called Light Boxes by Shane Jones. February is persecuting the townspeople. It has been winter for more than 300 days. All forms of flight are banned, and children have started to disappear, taken from their beds in the middle of the night. The town's priests hang ominous sheets of parchment on the trees, signed February. And somewhere on the outskirts of the town lives February himself, with the girl who smells of honey and smoke. First published in 2009 in Baltimore with a print run of 500 copies, following its cult success as a word-of-the-mouth hit, it's been brought to it has been bought by major publishers from around the world. And looking at it, it looks exactly up my street. It's one of these weird sort of little, it's got like lists and little snippets and weirdly, and I'm in love with it already and I haven't even read it yet, so I'm going to sit and read this one. I don't know, actually I don't know whether I will read it at the moment. No, I probably will. I was thinking it feels like one because it's all snowy and everything. I was thinking it might be one that I might read when it's cold, but sod it, why wait for the weather? I might read that one quite soon. Then I bought two books that I am entirely blameless for. I'm entirely blameless, it's not my fault. Basically, you may remember, I think in my last video, I hauled Exquisite by Sarah Stovall, which was recommended by the wonderful Alice Slater, who's at Smoking Tofu on Twitter. And she actually did an episode of Hello Friend podcast with Bethany Rutter, which I listened to and was really, really good, and they started talking about Erin Kelly. Now, I have got a copy somewhere of He Said, She Said by Erin Kelly, which I'd been sort of looking at and thinking, oh, looks okay, but then they were raving about Erin Kelly so much that I think I'm going to get around to that one sooner. And I also picked up two of the books that they talk about in that podcast. The Poison Tree and The Burning Air. Both by Erin Kelly. Apparently, they were conflicted. I think Alice preferred The Poison Tree and Bethany preferred The Burning Air. So, decision. But they do both look really, really good, so I'm going to have a little read of The Poison Tree by Erin Kelly. In the sweltering summer of 1997, straight-laced, straight-A student Karen met Bieber, a bohemian and impossibly glamorous aspiring actress. She was quickly drawn into Bieber's world, and for a while life was one long summer of love. But every summer must end. By the end of theirs, two people were dead, and now Karen's past has come back to haunt her. Ooh. From what I can tell, Erin Kelly's writing is sort of like thrillers, but with sort of like a psychological bent, which is the kind of thriller that I really love, so I'm really excited to give these a go. So, The Burning Air. The McBrides have always gone to Far Barn in Devon. Hey! Sorry, I get really excited when Devon's mentioned in places. The McBrides have always gone to Far Barn in Devon for Bonfire Night, but this year everything is different. Lydia, the matriarch, is dead. Sophie, the eldest daughter, is desperately trying to repair a crumbling marriage, and Felix, the youngest of the family, has brought a girlfriend with him for the first time. The girl, Carrie, seems odd in a way that nobody can quite put their finger on, but when they leave her looking after Sophie's baby daughter and return to find both Carrie and the baby gone, they are forced to ask themselves if they've allowed a cuckoo into their nest. So this one looks really good. So yeah, those two, totally not my fault. They're totally Alice and Bethany's fault. Totally their fault. But you should definitely go and listen to Hello Friend podcast, particularly the episode with Alice as well, so I'll link that down below as well. And the last book that I bought myself in this haul is Mooncop by Tom Gauld. Now, I've been eyeing this one up in the graphic novel section for ages, and I was powerless the other day. The lunar colony is slowly winding down. Did I even say colony right there? I don't think I did. The lunar colony is slowly winding down, like a small town circumvented by a new highway. As our hero, the Mooncop, makes his daily rounds, his beat grows ever smaller, the population dwindles. A young girl runs away, an old lady loses her dog, an automaton wanders off from the Museum of the Moon. Mooncop is equal parts funny and melancholy, capturing essential truths about humanity and making this a story of the past, present and future all in one. So yeah, the illustrations in this one, I mean, you can probably tell from the cover, and I don't know how in focus I'll be able to get any of this, but the illustrations in this are just so adorable. So adorable. So it looks like it's going to be one that's going to make me sort of go, ah, quite a lot. So yeah, Mooncop is going to be one that I'm going to curl up with very soon. The other thing I just want to quickly haul because it's so cute. It's not a book, but basically I was in Aldi yesterday, which won't be yesterday by the time this goes up, and I saw this. How cute is this? It's £4. £4. It's a pineapple. It's a China pineapple. A China-apple. It's like a pot, and yeah, it's no idea what I'm going to put in it. No idea what I'm going to use it for. But it's so cute. Pineapple! China-apple! So yeah, that's the first part of my June haul. As I say, went a little bit mad, but what can you do? As per the usual, if any of these books here that I've had in my haul you have read and you didn't like, keep stum. If you like them, talk to me, big them up, yay, tell me if I should bump them up my reading list, bump them down my reading list, or whatever. Any of them appeal to you and you're thinking of using them, reading them, even getting them, buying them, reading them, using them as a pillow, I don't know. If any of them look cool for you, then let me know, have a little chat in the comments below. Do any of them look fascinating? I'm definitely going to try and make that catch on now. It's never going to happen, but I'm definitely going to try. So yeah, tell me what you're reading, tell me if any of these you fancy, and have a chat, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!